some amazing images and realities recorded for us in our scriptures. And one of the ways that these realities have been communicated in my life is between and from specific people. Maybe you've met a person imbued with the Holy Spirit. I've been grateful to meet a number of them. And what they do and how they act and what they say, I think speaks to us of the message of Easter. Again, that we're not sharing these stories together just to remember the past, but that they might unlock something within us, unwrap the gift that God has placed within us at our baptism, at our being created, and help us to engage in that gift in our own lives and to give thanks to God for them. One of those people, Sister Augustine is her name, and may she rest in peace, contemplative Dominican sister. And when I was newly ordained, maybe 3 or 4 years, we had the responsibility of going to their monastery not too far from our friary to have Mass. And just being in her presence, she didn't really need to say an awful lot to me to know that I was in the presence of someone who had committed their life to Jesus Christ in a way that continued to overflow and outpour just by her presence. And one of the things she would speak to me sometimes in the sacristy, and my question often would be, "How are you doing, sister?" And her response always, "We're doing fine." That struck me. I was wondering how she was, and yet she was not concerned about herself really at all, but talking about her community, the things that were going on there. Not that she was not filled with appropriate self-love, but that her response just always caught my ear. Say, I was really kind of interested in how you were doing, but she would always respond, "We're doing well." And that common vision is something that I sense that we're invited to embrace during Pentecost Sunday, as much and as helpful it is for us in our personal relationship with God, to have the Holy Spirit in our lives and mediating between us and God, but how important that the Spirit has, in today, once again invited us into a communion of relationships, and that we do that today in a way that would then speak to our world about what's important in our lives and how we've been shaped by this gift and how it affects every moment of our lives, our awareness of the blessedness of every breath that we take. And so we have opportunities, perhaps people in your own life who have helped you make that connection and to see that Jesus himself, if we might recall one of the stories from John's Gospel of when he told the disciples who had returned from going to get food, as he was sitting by the well talking to the Samaritan woman, that he had a nourishment and a food that they didn't yet understand. And what he was doing during that time away was giving hope and vision to the Samaritan woman. And I sense that that's the invitation for us too, to see that's a nourishment that we need as well, and that's allows us to grow as we should. What helps us there is the well-being of others and of our neighbors. We heard that beautiful listing of the gifts or the fruits of the Holy Spirit, that this is what our call is, to try to bring to other people's lives: the love, the joy, the peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. These are what we can offer to other people, ministering as testifying to Jesus Christ in a way that ultimately then brings us the nourishment that we seek, oftentimes in ways that aren't very successful because we've got it backwards. We are called to be there for others, to help them have the hope and the vision that ultimately is the gifts of the Holy Spirit. And yes, of course, we desire them for ourselves, but that's one another's responsibility. That's what I need to receive from you. That's why I'm so glad that we gather together in this way, that I'm not here alone, but recognizing that this communion of faith, that the Spirit that Jesus sends in us is us. Also our hearts, of course, but in us as a community and communion of faith. A great Catholic scholar, Friedrich von Hugel, a Roman Catholic from England, has a series of letters that he wrote to his niece, Gwen, who he was very fond of, and she was requesting his assistance in helping her grow in the faith. These letters are worth reading. I'll just read to you a portion of one of the letters that he sent to her. It seems that he was ill at the time, was experiencing a lot of problems falling asleep or staying asleep at night because of this illness. So listen to what he wrote to his niece, Gwen. I wonder whether you realize a deep, great fact that souls, all human souls, are deeply interconnected. That I mean, we can not only pray for each other, but suffer for each other. That these long, trying wakings that I was able to offer them to God and to Christ for my Gwen child, that he might ever strengthen, sweeten, steady her in her true, humble, and dependence on him. Nothing is more real than this interconnection, this gracious power put by God himself in the very heart of our infirmities. It is the church which at its best and deepest is just that, the interdependence of all the broken and the meek. So I share that with you as something that I hope might do what it also did for me. Unlock that hunger to have that type of experience and recognize the power that Jesus is offering to us as he bestows upon us the Holy Spirit. That he's given us that privilege to share in his mission, his ministry for the life of others, the life of the world. And clearly, we have been and given examples of that throughout our lives. And yet sometimes, if your experience is like me and mine, I'm often retreating and turning in on myself selfishly for my own good or my own peace and joy and all the different gifts that I want, when it's really my task to help bring that into a life of another and in all of creation. So we have that privilege then, sisters and brothers, this Pentecost Sunday, to recognize our connection with one another and with others, and our call to testify to Jesus Christ today, and as we move forward with the power of the Spirit. While Easter ends in the season, our call to Jesus to be the representation of his risen life never ends, and invites us now to enter more deeply into that gift so that we can share it more honestly, with more transparency, with those that we encounter every day of our lives. Might we do this, offer our hearts and our bodies for the sake of Jesus and his message of love. Might we be that type of minister of the gospel to one another.